All right, everyone, make sure you get your cameras on. We are live on YouTube, live on Zoom. Let me see your cameras. Go. Brandon, welcome back. Lula camera, Daniela camera. Somebody's still connecting audio. Diana, I see you somewhere there, I guess. Edith, hey, how are you? And I see also Miss New York. Got it. I mean, I see you from here up. New York. Gotta lower the camera, gotta be right in your face. There you go, so I can see you. All right, so we have here a few questions already from Mr. Badura. We're going to address those questions while more people join. All right, Tina is joining. All right, good evening. Edith, right here. Good evening. Mr. Badura, happy Friday. Absolutely, happy Friday. Today is a short chapter. Easy chapter. I'm not going to go too much in detail because it's property management. That's more for the broker's course. So hopefully before midnight we finish and you have an early Friday to take advantage of. Okay. So let's hear the questions we have. You guys can laugh. It's a joke. We're not staying until midnight. All right. Let's see. Question. You have once written. Okay, hold on. Oh, you had this as the answer. That's what you're saying. I'm not reading the question yet. So you had this as the answer. Okay, you want an explanation of why this is the answer? I charge more for explanations. I'm here to read a book and that's it. All right, so regarding contracts and forms. A, once written and signed, they cannot be changed except by a lawyer. Real estate licensees may alter forms but not contracts. C, whoever originates them can make changes without the risk of unauthorized practice of law. Or D, principals may make changes as long as they sign or initial each change. Sorry, I want to make sure. Okay, you did write it. I was going to ask that. What is your exact question? Okay. If a principal makes a change after all parties sign, does this change the entire contract to a counter offer? So any change to a contract is established based on counter offer. So what usually happens, I'll give you the example. I put an offer right now. And the offer is accepted, so it goes to attorney review. During the attorney review, let's say, or during that contingency, I mean that cooling off period, during the attorney review, you guys look at line 109 and say, hey, line 109 doesn't make sense. In my legal opinion, we should change it to this or that. As an attorney, you'll make the changes for your client, submit to the other side with your client's agreements. Sorry, we start with cops right away. Give me a second. I mean, ambulance. All right, it's Friday. So where was I? So the moment we make a change to that agreement, right? So I can make an offer, and Mr. Badura, you change something there. You say, hey, this is fine, but instead of 200,000, I want 201,000. That's a counter. Once we go back and forth and we agree to the terms of the offer, if we both agree, it becomes a contract. Then we alter the contract. It's no longer an offer. It's an alteration of the contract itself. But could you deem it as a change of the offer? All the way to the closing, that contract is an offer. So you just went from the simple offer to a contract. Until we close, it was always an offer or promise to perform. Does that make sense? So things could change along the way, like, hey, there's an inspection that needs to be done, for instance, or you got to drop the price because of what we found, for instance. So any changes or any addenda, anything that's added or removed from the contract, when attorneys do it, they prepare separate documents for both parties to sign that they're in agreement with those terms. Once it's completed, that's the final contract. That's it. As far as an original contract, let's say we get there and say, let's say this is the contract. Okay? So let's say this is the contract, these are the terms, whatever, yada, 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 and we say, no, not here. So we're going to cross this out. We don't want individual property manager, we want collective. Okay? I'm making a change. I'm making it, this is collective. I wrote fast. That's why it's really, really tiny so you guys don't see how bad my handwriting is. So once we make a change from individual to collective, we change the term of the contract. During the offer, counter offer, whatever you want to call it, we made an agreement to the terms. We agreed to collective versus individual. So now every party must come here and sign or initial, whatever the change was. So we already filled it out. You signed, I signed, it's final. We decide to go amend it, got an initial to make sure everybody recognizes the amendment. That's all it is. Okay, so yes, could it be a counter offer? Depending on what time in line it is, it's a counter offer. Once it's under contract, we're just making sure all the terms are final. And yes, all must be signed or initialed. That's pretty much it. Okay? So that's why, again, this is what it is. So neither one of these would have been correct, right? Any change must be signed or initial. Even with this is in any contract. It's true for any contract, even contracts with your broker, right? Same thing, must be signed. Even marriages, it says till death do us part. If you go say, oh, no, death, no, let's cross that out and not until death, no, right? Because then we know what the outcome is going to be, right? You don't want that. So any contract or agreement is subject to change. Just make sure if there's 2 parties or 3 parties or 10 parties and they're affected by that change, right? They all must sign. All right, next question was, in performing a comparative market analysis, a licensee must be careful to trying to keep here. Okay. A licensee must be careful to use the term market value whenever possible in the report. Show a low suggested selling price to avoid a complaint of misrepresenting the value. Include the results of a certified appraiser in the analysis, or avoid creating a false impression that a licensee is a certified appraiser. Your question is, why not C? Wouldn't that help the market? See, the thing is, we do not prepare, the statement is about the salesperson, right? The licensee preparing a comparative market analysis. We don't prepare appraisals. So why would we include an appraisal in our comparative market analysis? We do our CMA, the appraiser does the appraisal. It's separate things. We don't include theirs and ours, they don't include ours and theirs. It's separate things, separate reports, right? This is why we can never even suggest or give a false impression that what we're doing is an appraisal. We cannot claim that we did an appraisal at all. Can we say, hey, you hire a certified appraiser to appraise your property, right? It's not us including, it's the seller hiring the appraiser, not us. It's the buyer hiring the appraiser, not us. You understand? We never get involved with the appraisal side of valuation. We can recommend an appraiser, but we don't get involved in that at all. Okay, so neither one of these would be correct. Any other questions? Oh, I thought you were there typing a bunch of things. I'm here waiting for, like, I see him going like Bruce Almighty. I really thought, stop sending messages to Brandon, okay? I thought you're here typing another question or something. Terrible. All right. So, guys, you have no other questions regarding previous chapters? Ahmed is the only one that's doing the review questions at the end. That's all it's been proving to me so far. Is like he's the only one. Oh. All right. So, see, we got one person watching on YouTube. So, hi YouTube. And let's move forward. We're going to talk about property management today. Now, like I said, we're going to go briefly through this because it's not heavily tested for the salesperson. So you have to have really basic understanding of what property management entails. But if we were doing the broker's course, I would have gone really, really slow. Make sure you guys understand everything. Nadia, stop arguing with the camera. Not the camera's fault. They're arguing. Gotcha. Arlene is there. Hey, Arlene, how are you? Cool, everybody else. Great. So, property management. We're going to talk about the management functions. What are your management functions? Very simple. Very, very simple. You have to report. Remember, you're not the owner, but you are an extension of the owner. So, you have to report to the owner what they could be expecting. You have to hold proper budgeting or accounting of all the monies, right? You're responsible for renting the units. You are responsible for maintenance. You're responsible for construction. And we already talked about risk management, so this one should be the easiest to go through, right? Because we talked yesterday about risk management. Now, as a property manager, do I have to do all of these? No, I'm also responsible for the hiring and firing of employees or contracting for services, right? We don't have to be somebody that does everything, right? Jack of all trades. No, we don't have to. It's good to have a basic understanding so we're not duped by anybody. Nobody's going to take advantage of us, right? It's good to know the basics. But these are your basic functions. That means you will be appointed authority by the owner of the building, which happens to be your employer, or that authority is extended from the employer, right? Let's say the owner of the building employs a third-party company to which you work for, or for which you work for. So that employer, that's a separate employer now. So either directly to the owner, or you work with a third party. That employer is the one that makes the contract with the owner, and then that employer trickles those responsibilities down to you. All right. So you're either the one on top, or you're one of those making things happen. That's it. Now, property management is a specialty within the real estate profession. Many states require persons who manage real estate on behalf of other persons or entities to be licensed as real estate brokers. Now, other states license such persons specifically as property managements, and real estate firms that handle the sale of commercial commercial and investment properties are in a natural position to manage those properties for their owners. Some property managers work for firms that manage multiple properties under a blanket management agreement contract. So within the agreement says all these properties fall under our agreement. That's what it is. A blanket covers more than one parcel, right? Others are independent agents, and some are employees of the owner, as I was just saying. Now, generally, they fall into one of the following categories. So, you're either an individual property manager, usually a real estate broker who manages properties for one or more owners, and may belong to a small property management firm devoted to full-time property management, right? Be self-employed and be one of the several managers in a large real estate firm. You could be an individual building manager, okay? Usually manages a single property and may be employed by a property manager or directly by the owner, as I was saying before, right? So may or may not have a real estate license. This will be also depending on state laws. We have a resident manager. Resident manager for residential properties only lives on the property and may be employed by a real estate broker, a managing agent, or an owner to manage a property on a part-time or full-time basis, and may be required by state law, as may be required by state law for properties of certain types or sizes. So like a superintendent, right? Now, a manager has a fiduciary relationship with the principal and is charged with producing the greatest possible net return on an owner's investment while safeguarding the value of the investment for the owners or investor, right? At the same time, the manager has the same responsibilities to the tenants who want the best value and the best space for their money. Professional managers are therefore much more than rent collectors. They need technical expertise in marketing, accounting, finance, and construction. Property managers often specialize in one type of property. It could be apartments, office, retail, industrial, farm, single family, and acquire the specialized knowledge of that property type. So, whatever the property type and management arrangement, the manager work involves lost it right there. Involves leasing, managing, marketing, and maintaining the property. And the services that a manager provides, thus can be seen to fall into three areas: financial, physical, and administrative. Okay. Specific functions like duties and responsibilities are determined by the management agreement, like I was saying. Although most agreements will include at least one of the following functions. So we're going to go over these in a second. What I want to point out is this. The manager has a fiduciary relationship, right? What does that mean? Who can tell me? I told you I was going to repeat it today, so maybe you'll remember after this. What does fiduciary relationship mean? Good faith or will in all actions? Let's see. Fiduciary relationship. Obligation to the principal. Okay. Responsibility. Okay. What else? Of the principal or to the principal? Ruth is on. Honesty. Okay. Guys, remember, okay, so what type of agencies do we have, and what does agency mean? Thank you, Mr. Radura. I was looking for this. Cold, care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. That's your fiduciary duties or obligations, right, to the owner of the building. Very good. So when Ruth on YouTube said honesty, right, that's part of it, because we have to be honest, we have to be loyal, right, to our clients, right? So cold, we must care for the client, we must obey lawful instructions, we must hold proper accounting, we must be loyal, and hold also and provide proper disclosures. What does this remind you of? Where did we find cold and fiduciary relationships? Where did we find this? Talked about it yesterday. We had a whole chapter on this, chapter 11. Agency, thank you guys. Agency Client relationship, absolutely. So agency. So when we're talking about cold, care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure, when we're talking about cold, we're talking about dealing with a client, right? Where we owe all the duties to that particular client. So in this case, let me ask you, do we think we must have a cold if we're hired as a property manager? Do we care for the owner of the building? Right? Should we obey lawful instructions? These are rhetorical questions, by the way. Should we hold proper accounting? We just went over that, right? Should we be loyal and disclose? Absolutely. So our job is to make sure that let me just correct something real quick. Our job is to make sure that the principal, not the principal of something, the principal is, so if it's P-L-E, and this is not an English class, but if it's the principal of something, right, is something. Principal is someone that we owe specific duties to, okay? So in this case, we're talking about the principal. It's English language. They couldn't find a different way for us to say the same thing, right? Principal. How do you write it? Well, one is P-A-L, the other one is P-L-E, right? English language. All right, so now, do we have one single duty? Or yesterday, I didn't touch. I know you guys put in answers, but I didn't touch it because I just wanted to leave it for today. Yesterday, some of you wrote universal agent, some of you wrote special agents, right? And general agent. That was one of the answers, right? When Mr. Badura said dual agency, and I said that was illegal, right? And then a few answers popped in. I know you guys remember this, right? Yes. Okay. Great. So we had universal agency, we had general agency, and we have special agency. A property manager handles more than one thing, right? But does not have full powers to on the property. So the property manager cannot sell the building without the owner of the building's authorization. So what type of agency do we have? Is it universal, general, or special agency? All right, Ruth just wrote some powers, not all, and that defines what? Thank you, Ruth. General agency. So we are general agents. Very good. And we're going to highlight that in a second as well. Now, one of the things I want to point out also is that your job as a fiduciary of the owner, your job, and you might have a question like this in the school or state exam, your job primarily is to get the greatest possible return for the owner's investment, right? The greatest possible return. So they're relying on you to keep on managing the property, budgeting things properly, and making adjustments to maximize the return that the property has. So I put $1 million to buy the building. I expect over the next 3, 4, 5 years to get my $1 million and make another $1 million or $2 million, as an example, right? So it's maximized. If I'm the one managing, it's not maximizing my return because I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I hire a professional, right? I mean, we might know what we're doing, but we are not the professionals at it. So will we be able to get the best or highest return of the property? No. That's why we get somebody specialized to do so. All right, so the overall, or the main thing, that we're trying to get out of the property is best return, and at the same time, increase the value of the property, right? How do we increase the value of the property? By taking care of our tenants, by giving them the best value in this property and the best space for their money, okay? By being the best property manager, even if you don't have all the amenities, people will want to live there, right? It's one comparison. Jen, I see your question. I'll be right there. So even when it's a great comparison for me, it is every time I explain about a restaurant business, right? Guys, and correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes we go to places where the food is delicious, right? But service sucks. How many times do you go back to a place where service sucks, even though the food is really good, right? Not always. Okay, and then there's some places where the food is good. It's not like to die for, but the food is good. But the service, the quality of service is amazing. How many times do you go to that one, right? And then there's places where service is amazing, food sucks. I mean, it's the same thing. You cannot have the extremes. Does that make sense, guys? Service beats excellence, right? In the product, service beats excellence every time. You can have the best product in the world. If your customer service sucks, you will lose all your customers. Again, that's my opinion. So far, I haven't been wrong in that sense. Most people, when I ask this question, they agree with me, most of them. Some are like, no, I want the food to die for. I don't care about the service. In fact, they even came up with restaurants nowadays that they curse at you, they throw stuff at you, and people enjoy this. I don't know why, but people enjoy being mistreated, right? So there's a crazy for everything out there, right? So property management, key, service. The best service you provide, the more clients will bring, therefore the highest possible net return. Very important. Let's see, we have a question here from Jen. And Jen says, when does the property manager need to have a license? When he works for a business or an owner? So, I just addressed that. But, to have a license, let's say, there's a, actually, hold on. Okay. I don't know if you're still there. It shows me there's only one viewer, so I'm not sure if it's you or if it's Ruth or anybody else. But anyway, so if we have an owner of the building, right, and we have a management company, okay? So if we work for the owner of the building directly, usually no state requires a license if you work for the owner directly. If you work for a management company that's going to work for the owner, then you are what's called a third party. Therefore, you need a license because anyone working for somebody else, right, and they expect a return, so anybody that's helping in the real estate transaction somehow and expects some type of consideration must have a license. So this company must have a broker's license. Their agents, depending on what they're doing, must have a salesperson license at least. But if you're an employee of the owner, you don't need a license. Most states do not require. Okay? Jen just said, I'm here. Okay. Let me know if you got the answer. All right, you guys good with this one too? It's good to remember because there might be a question in the state exam, so how to remember. You work directly with the owner. Usually it's the same thing as doing it for sale by owner or for rent by owner. A license is not needed. If you work for a management company that's helping the owner, then you're a third party. If you are a third party and you want to get paid, then you need a license. Joel, you okay? What's if SOM? So that's a mistake? Okay. You were texting the wrong person? All right. I'll wait. He's typing. So Jen, you had that question in the state exam? I'm waiting for Joel to type something. I was about to go lay down on the couch a little bit, just waiting, relaxing. You know. Oh, I see the message. Okay. If I'm the owner of the building, now Jen, I didn't say you were entitled to another question. I asked if you got it. That's it. I didn't say throw me another one. Just kidding. So let's look at Joel's question. Joel's question is, if I'm the owner of the if the owner of the building hired me to be a property manager, do I have to go through the broker too? So this is what I was explaining right here. If you are a direct property manager, direct, like you're a salaried employee of the owner, you don't need a license. So if you don't need a license, do you think you need to go through the broker? No. Right here, you got to work for a brokerage company, and your license cannot be in both places. So if it's a brokering property management company, if you're hired as an employee is one thing. If you're hired as an employee / salesperson, it's another. You have to be careful. Property management and sales, no. Directly to the owner and you're a salesperson for a broker, not a problem. Right? So it depends on which side are you on, right here or are you here? Okay, and also most property management companies, even though they're brokers, they don't have a what do you call it? Even though they're brokers, they might not have a license for sales. They just open up the brokerage for property management purposes. All right, so they might not allow you to do real estate sales. So you could be with a property management company that's strictly management of properties. Again, no sales. Okay. Yes, Tina. It's like when the owners for a home sell their own home, they are for sale by owner. Yep. All right, let's look over here at questions. Like we're talking about one question. You already gave me 3. The one I answered and now 2 more. Don't apologize. Like I heard this years ago and I've been using that. Don't apologize. Just don't do it again. Right? When people say I'm sorry, it's so weird. And then they do the same thing over and over again. That's even worse. Just don't do it again. You know I'm messing with you, Jen, right? All right, so let's see the question. So how general is the tasks that they have to do to be profitable for the owner? How general is the task? Hold on. They have to do to be profitable for the. Trying to figure out that one. Okay. Let's hold on to that one. I'm trying to figure out what the question would actually be in the exam. So that one's not coming to me right now. Next, you wrote, can you talk about exceptions? Because they always give you a rundown of things that agents do, but they have all these exceptions, and that's where I trick myself. Okay, so as we go through this, you'll understand the functions of a property manager. So then they will say a property manager can do all of these except. You're going to realize what property manager can do or not do. As far as the previous question, I'm still trying to figure out what it is. So as we go, if you remember more details about that question, definitely post it and I'll address it, okay? So what are the functions that a property manager has, okay? One of them is a financial reporting to the principal. And this is a fundamental responsibility of the property manager because you're handling my property. You're handling my money, so I need to know what you're doing. Now, depending on our agreement, it may be required monthly, quarterly, annually, right? Whatever way we decide. These reports typically include annual operating budget, the monthly cash flow reports indicating income and expenses, and net operating income, and also the net cash flow. Profit and loss statements based on cash flow reports showing the net profit as well. Okay, and a budgeting comparison statement showing how actual results match the original budget. So we said we need X amount of dollars for this year. This is what we spent. How does it match? Did we go overboard? Are we under? Are we right on the dot? So we can adjust for next year the amount of money that's needed. Okay, an operating budget based on the expected expenses and revenues is a necessity for management. This will determine the rental rates. Okay, the operating budget determines the rental rates. Why? Because I need a minimum amount of rent to cover the budget. So for instance, if I have $200,000 a month in expenses, right, then my rents need to be at a level where it covers all the expenses, right, at least. So that sets the rental rate, what we can afford. If I drop the rental rates, will I be able to cover the $200,000? Most likely not. All right. So amounts available for capital expenditures, required reserve funds, salaries, and wages of employees. The amounts to be paid for property taxes, insurance premiums, mortgage, and debt service. That's all our responsibility. This operating budget will also indicate the expected return, right? Based on the previous year performance. And a typical budget will contain a projection, like I was saying, which also is based on past performance and on current market information, right? So we can know what to do in the future. Income of all sources, such as rents and other services, and of course, all the expenses for all purposes, such as operating expenses, maintenance services, utilities, taxes, capital, and so on. Operating statements itemizing income and expenses are then presented to the owner on a regular basis so that the owner can evaluate the manager's performance against the budget. So our job, again, is to make sure that we have an idea of how much money we're going to spend, right? We're going to lay it all down on the ground and figure out, okay, these are the actual expenses. These are the projected expenses. We need to have a cushion for that variable, right? Hopefully, we're under the expenses, or we can make changes. That's another thing. Based on this, we can see where we're spending most of our money and make changes to maximize that return. So that next year, we don't need as much money. And the year after, we don't need as much money, and so on. All right, so that's part of property management. We are not accountants, right? But we need to have a clear understanding of how to handle a profit and loss balance sheet, okay? Income. The total of the scheduled rents plus revenues from such sources as vending services, storage charges, late fees, utilities, and contracts is the potential gross income, or PGI. You guys remember this from chapter 16, PGI? Right? Potential gross income. This is assuming, potential gross income is assuming that we have 100% occupancy and stress-free, right? But we know nothing is stress-free. There's always a possibility of vacancy. There's always possibility of a tenant not paying, right? So we need to subtract those, right, to reach the real number, which is the effective gross income, or EGI, right? From that, we're going to deduct also our expenses, so the operating expenses, to reach the key number that I've been telling everybody from the beginning. For almost all calculations, the key number is this. It's the NOI, or net operating income. Give me a thumbs up if you remember this NOI thingy. All right, we got a few, okay. It just started yesterday, and yes, I remember, of course. No, it's okay. Now, when debt services, when debt service and reserves, which are not counted as operating expenses, are subtracted, we reach what? The cash flow. We learned this from investments, right? On chapter 18, we learned cash flow. It's whatever's left after paying everything. So if I want to figure out the value of the building, I stop right here and apply the cap rate, if you guys remember. Okay? If I want to figure out how much money comes into my pocket every single month or every single year, then I need to figure out what was left over. This is called the leftover after paying all the expenses. And there's a pre-tax and there's a post-tax cash flow. Okay? Please tell me you remember these things. Even if you don't, say yes. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. So, expenses. Expenses may be fixed or variable. Fixed expenses, what we already expect. They're constant, right? And these include operating expenses, regular maintenance costs, administration, and so on. Variable expenses, as the name says, they're variable. So they might change from month to month, such as repairs or capital expenditures. What are capital expenditures? These are expected expenditures, but for major items. So when you see capital, not the capital of a state, not the capital of a country, capital in terms of money, hey Kelly, capital in terms of money, right? Capital means major expenses or major investment, the capital investment. So the word capital, when you see in the state exam, we are looking at something big, right? For instance, let's say I need to replace the roof, right? The roof is not something that's $5 or $200 for you to fix here and there, like plumbing, right? The roof is something that could be $30, $40, $50,000, right? So that's a capital expenditure, a major expenditure, okay? Cash reserve, this is common sense. It's the money we put aside just in case. It's the money we put aside just in case we get a 2020 slap around, right? Everybody should have a cash reserve. Okay. All right, Jen, you saw the NOI video. Okay, the income approach. All right, cool. Do you have questions there or are you good? So the property manager, whose full responsibilities include maintaining and managing the property in accordance with the owner's financial goals, includes seeing that the property is properly rented and tenanted, right? The manager may use the services, pay attention to this, the property manager may use the services of a leasing agent who's concerned solely with renting the space. So I could be a property manager and not be a leasing agent. I can be both. I can be all, right? We already talked about this. I can be the jack of all trades. But the best idea is that you delegate. So I can have somebody that's solely focused on leasing, on renting, right? Well, I'm the manager that appoints that task to someone. Now, renting the property includes the following tasks, and this is regardless of which party is actually going to be performing it. For instance, controlling vacancies. There are many possible reasons for vacancies in a building. Many possible reasons for vacancies in the building, like rent too high or too low, ineffective marketing. I guarantee most of the times it's management quality, right? Because if you know what you're doing, neither one of these matter, right? If you know what you're doing, you're not going to have it too high or too low. It's going to be just there, perfect, right? Ineffective marketing, you'll know what you're doing, so you'll delegate to somebody that does marketing. Poor tenant retention program, you're not keeping the tenants, I guarantee you, is because you suck at management. Guarantee. It's like the customer service in the restaurant business that I told you, right? But if there's no customer service there, people don't go back. If they don't feel they were treated properly, they don't go back, right? Image and appearance problems goes back to management for allowing it to get to that point. And high market vacancy rate. Now this, it might not be your issue, your fault, because it's the market, right? This is probably the only one. Everything else, you suck. Bottom line, all right? So make sure, guys, you are the, just like being a salesperson, make sure you're the property manager that actually cares and studies the market to find the right rental rate for your property, right? That actually cares and studies how to do proper marketing for your clients, right? And build relationships with your tenants. This is key, relationship with the tenants. That's what keeps on staying or coming back. People get comfortable. That's what it is, right? Some keep on coming back even though they go live somewhere else, but they keep on coming back home. That's what it is, right? That was a 2020 slap around for somebody, but anyway, let's see. We got a question here. By the way, what I was just saying, successful managers look at these and take steps to limit or counteract. All right, Jen. The approach that allows us for up and down adjustments to different properties to arrive at the value of the subject property It's not the income approach, it's a sales comparison approach. So the reason being, real quick, I have the subject property. This is the one I'm trying to rent, subject, right? And I have property A, B, and C. There's no two properties that are exactly alike. There's always going to be little differences, Jen. So for that reason, my property has 3 bedrooms. This one has 3, this one has 3, this one has 2. My property has 2 baths. This one has 1, this one has 2, and this one has 1. Okay? So my property has a garage. Right? 1 garage. This one has 1 garage, this one has 0. So Jen, the fact that we will make adjustments up and down is because we quantify the value of each bedroom. We quantify the value of the garage, and we're going to say, well, this one doesn't have a garage, so it's worth less than this one. Okay? These two right here, property A and property C, they have 1 less bath, so it's worth minus X amount of dollars. And the 3 bedroom, this one has 1 less bedroom, so it's worth less amount of dollars. So this is the sales comparison approach, or the CMAs, or the comps, whatever you want to call it, also named market data approach, because we analyze what's on the market. All right, Jen? Sorry, we went a little off for a reason, because in property management, we also have to figure out our competitors. So we have to do comparables anyway. Okay. So Jen, the income approach is only to determine how much income the property brings and what the value would be. All right. Marketing. Our job also is to have proper marketing, right? So we can bring more people. It could be, we could use billboard advertising, brochures and flyers, meetings and presentations, networking, newspapers, ads, and so on and so forth. That's on us. Setting the rents. How do we set the rents? CMA. How do we set the rents? We have to figure out what other people are doing. So we're going to look at what's happening in the market. We're going to look at CMAs, and no, it's not the Country Music Awards. It's comparable market analysis. We're going to compare our property to other properties on the market right here. We need to figure out what's happening in the market. You guys good? And again, look right here, Jen. It says right here, the manager makes a detailed survey of the competitive space. So our competitors, other properties are similar, right? And look, makes adjustments for differences between the subject property and competing properties before setting the rental rates in the property. So what I just showed you earlier, property A, B, and C, right? We're going to compare to ours. So whether it's the sales price or it's the rental price, it's the same thing. It's comps. This is always comps and adjustments. I like these. We got a message saying, running late, stuck in traffic from Jersey City. We'll join as soon as I get home, hopefully. The only one that needs to be present somewhere is me, right? You guys can at least listen on the way. It's not like, hey, I'm running late to be in class. Just listen to me at least on the way. Now there's no excuse. All right, let's see. We got 4 people. 4 people are watching on YouTube. We have a like. Very good. Make sure you guys subscribe too. And you too, Zoomers. Make sure you subscribe. This way you get alerts. And you also help me. Because the more likes I have and subscribes, the more people see my videos. And the more people I can help. And I've been getting a lot of messages. I just got one from somebody from Alabama. He just moved to New Jersey, and he was asking me questions as well. So I'm here to help people. And again, if you guys, hey Cheryl, if you guys subscribe, like the videos, it will help me a lot. Okay. Okay, and it helps others. Hold on, cops passing. Then you wonder why people don't like the cops? They don't let us teach. All right, back to this. Selecting tenants. Selecting tenants. All right. How do we select tenants? How do we select tenants? Thank you, Cheryl. I'm glad I'm helping. How do we select tenants? Well, one of the things we need to figure out is if I have a family of 10, am I going to stick them in the 2-bedroom? Probably not the best idea. Does not meet the health standards either, right? So we got to make sure that they fit the space, right? The other thing is, are they able? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. There you go. That's how we select tenants. Thanks, Shanice. You're going to do great, by the way, Shanice. You're going to do great. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo client. Come on. You're going to rent right here. I can totally picture Shanice doing this. All right, so another thing is, are they able to pay for the space? Very important. The tenant's business has to be compatible with that of other tenants, so it doesn't go against what's there. And there has to be room for expansion if the tenant's needs of space is likely to grow. Like for instance, where we have right now, the lease across the hall is about to expire in another year or two, and we hope to take over, right? So we are expanding. So this place for us is great. Hopefully we'll kick everybody out of this building and we'll just take over the building. Makes it a lot easier for us, right? Anyway. Ooh, hold on. Jen found the escrow question. Wait, what? Oh, from yesterday. Yesterday you were asking about escrow funds or escrow account or escrow money, right? Something like that. So let's see. Oh, that's a great question. Guys, I want you guys to help me out with this one. There's a question that Jen has, and I want everybody to help out. This is a great question. Totally unrelated to property management. But it is Friday, right? It is Friday, so we're going to go with it. After the sale, what does the broker do with the money in the good faith escrow? There's a couple options, but I want to just figure out what you guys are going to feel about this. So after the sale, what does the broker do with the money that's in escrow? That was the good faith escrow, good faith deposit. All right, Jen, we're going to put our students to the test and see what they got. Make me proud, people. Proud. There's more to the question than that. I'm just going with a simple, what she wrote right now, but go this. Okay. Anybody else? After the closing, right? After the sale, after the closing, what happens to the money, the good faith escrow or the good faith deposit that was set aside? What happens to the Okay. Only got 2 people answering. Come on. Ahmed says supposed to go towards a down payment. Lula says credit the money to the buyer. Okay. What else? Cheryl says if not applied in the close to the purchase, it's returned to the buyer. Okay. Tina says it stays in escrow. Nadia says it's used towards tax and insurance. Edward says it goes towards the sale or seller. Sale or seller. Ruth says it's used to pay property tax and insurance. So I addressed this yesterday, what escrow is, the different types of escrows. So we're going to go over this again. Which, quite honestly, for me, it's way more important than property management. To be honest, in terms of questions, way more important. Getting somewhere, one of the options. On children, what are your answers? Hey, Stacy. It was a very, Stacy just gave me a very loud, hi, Bruno. It's all caps. What? Did you answer? Arlene, did you answer? Come on, guys. Answers. Ruth says homeowner. Well, who's the homeowner after the closing? Or are you talking about the seller? After the closing, the homeowner is the buyer. Before the closing, the homeowner is the seller. Arlene says tax and insurance. There's no wrong answers, guys. There's no wrong answers right now. I just want to see what you guys feel. The buyer. It should have been credited to the buyer towards the purchase and the close. Does the bank already have this money? You keep on insisting the same thing. I got you. Got you. Already got it. I saw what you wrote. He keeps on hitting the same spot. Like, doesn't the bank already have the money? Didn't it clear already? Facts. Miss New York, did you answer? You did? Let's see what previous realtors answer. Oh yeah, you said towards tax and insurance. There you go. All right, who else? Goes towards the down payment. All right. The funds are dispersed. Okay. Cool. Ready for the answer? There's more than one answer. So, what happens to the money after the closing? The money that's in the good faith deposit. The only reason, drum roll, there you go. First of all, the only reason why the money would still be, and pay attention to this because it depends on how the question is asked. The only reason that the money would still be in the escrow of the realtor, of the broker, I'm sorry, the only reason why it'd still be there is if you got authorization to collect commission from escrow. So instead of paying out, because some brokers, they keep the escrow money, like the check is given to the broker or the money is given to the broker. At closing, they might say, hey, instead of transferring the money here, which is supposed to, like Mr. Badur was insisting, right? It's supposed to go towards the down payment. It's supposed to go towards the closing costs, right? So unless they said, take the commission from the escrow, right? That's the only time where the money stays with the broker and the broker is authorized to keep the money, remove them as a payout. That's the only time. 90% of the times, this does not exist. 90% of the times, any escrow monies, right, from, because there's two different types of escrows. I said this yesterday. If it's in the escrow account of the broker, if it's escrow account of the broker, this is the good faith deposit, also known as earnest money deposit. Okay? If it's in the account of the broker, so some of you talked about taxes and insurance. That's a different escrow account. If it's in the escrow account, or also called trust account of the broker, that's the good faith deposit or the earnest money deposit that the buyer put in. Okay? Therefore, these monies belong to the buyer. So, at closing, right? They go as a credit to the buyer at closing. A credit towards what? Again, it's a credit towards closing costs or towards down payments. Whatever is missing at the end. Okay? So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Nadia, I'm going to give you $10,000 with the offer. Like, so $10,000 and I want to buy this house. Okay? This is my good faith deposit towards the purchase of the house. Nadia, you're supposed to bring that to your broker, and your broker is supposed to deposit it. Right? So it goes into the escrow account, Jen. It goes into the escrow account of the broker. Okay? Why do we keep that money? To make sure that the buyer follows through with the terms of the contract. If the buyer follows through, then we get to the closing. Once we get to the closing, that was the buyer's money, so we have to credit the buyer for the money that belongs to the buyer. How do we credit? It could be towards closing costs or towards down payment. Period. Now, if we're talking about escrow, right? Because escrow simply means third party, other people's money, something like that, right? So third party, other people's money. So if you're talking about bank escrow, right? Or lender escrow, it's not broker, it's lender escrow. If that's what we're talking about, guys, and this is beyond your question, Jen. Now this is already separate. Your question, the answer was this, right? It either goes, because we got authorization to retrieve the commission from the escrow, or the traditional path is this. Okay? Now, but because some of you answered taxes and insurance, if you see bank or lender escrow, there's also two types of escrows. It's the upfront upfront taxes and insurance reserves. Okay, this is the upfront. So at closing, you got to bring X amount of dollars to put aside. So like 3 months, 4 months to put aside, right, in terms of tax and insurance. Or a second type of escrow. This goes with every payment. It's called PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. The TI right here, the TI, right, not the wrapper, the TI goes towards taxes and insurance that you have to pay every year. So tax and insurance, right? Tax and insurance, ongoing. So out of your monthly payment, they take taxes and insurance and they put into an escrow account. This is called the lender's escrow account. And once the bill comes quarterly for taxes, or semi-annually or even annually for insurance, once the bill comes, the escrow company that the lender has, the escrow company makes the payment toward taxes and insurance. Okay? So this one we give at closing, and this one is ongoing with your taxes. Two different types of escrow. But again, anytime we're talking about lender escrow, we're addressing taxes and insurance. Taxes and insurance. Okay? If we're talking about broker's escrow, it was a good faith deposit. It's not our money, it's the buyer's money. Or it's the tenant's money. Okay? That was a good faith deposit. We want to move forward. So, again, at closing. At closing. I know the question says after the closing. And that's why I'm trying to explain. At closing, it goes as a credit towards the buyer. And like I said, if any money is left at closing, that means, and it will say in the question, that the broker is authorized to get the commission from escrow. So instead of you paying me my commission, there's already money set aside. I'll take it from the escrow. It has to be authorized. All right? So to finalize this, that particular question, right? The answer is the broker cannot keep any money after closing because it's not his money unless authorized to do so. Okay? So the broker cannot keep any money. So this whole long story is just to explain one thing. There's no after closing when it comes to escrow money. There's no after closing. Everything is accounted for at the time of closing. There's no after closing. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to get at by explaining all the options. This is the only way escrow money flows. Okay? So, after closing, nothing. Unless we got authorization to take money from the escrow towards commission. There has to be a written authorization that says, Mr. or Mrs. Broker, you can remove money from the escrow. Instead of giving as a credit at closing, you can remove it from the escrow after closing. Okay, that's the only time. If the question does not say that, if there's no answer that talks about authorization to collect the commission, then there's no other option. The answer is no. They cannot take money from escrow after because everything is settled at closing, as Mr. Badur was here insisting so much. Doesn't the bank already have the money? Yes. Isn't it supposed to be cleared already? Yes. Doesn't it go towards the down payment? Yes, I got you. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay? And the 5-day rule, yes, towards the trust account right here. So I have 5 days after closing. If it's towards commission, I have 5 days, 5 business days to remove the money. My commission. Otherwise, again, me leaving money there when there's other people's money is commingling or conversion. All right? So, Jen, that is pretty much the options there. Let me know if you have any other questions with this, if you got it. Thank you, Ahmed. All right, I'm just waiting for an answer here. I want to make sure. Cheryl, Jen, Ruth, I want to make sure you guys got it. Stacy. Got it. Great. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you a variable of this question real quick. Variable of this question, sorry, as I was waiting for your answers. Here's a variable of the question. A broker is told at closing to deduct her commission from the funds previously deposited in her escrow account. In order to avoid commingling, right, the amount making up the broker's commission must be paid out. And then the answers are 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, or 10 days. So the answer is 5 days. Okay? So that's a variable of that question. Okay. Jen, an owner has accepted an offer. Another buyer approaches licensee with an offer on the same property. The licensee should tell the second offeror that. What should I tell the second one? All right, we accepted an offer, so what should I tell them? What do you guys think? Let me know also. We're turning this property management into a Q&A. Anybody? Let me know. The question was, I'm going to repeat it. An owner has accepted an offer. Another buyer approaches the licensee with an offer on the same property. The licensee should tell the second offeror that. What should we tell somebody else that comes with a second offer? What should we tell them? Okay. That the seller has already accepted an offer. That's an option. What else should I say? I'm just trying to see also if I have a question that's similar to that. Arlene says, too late. Should have gotten here earlier. Ruth, you got the question. Cheryl, you got the question. Let me know. Guys, I only have 2 people that answered. Come on, it's a Q&A. Let me know what you guys think. I have a variable here. For instance, a seller has given a counter offer to the buyer. If the seller receives a second offer for a higher price, does this still mean that the seller can revoke the counter offer, wait for the response of the first buyer, tell the first buyer to raise his offer, or wait until she has exhausted all counter offers from the first one? Let me know. See if I find any other. So the only offer I have that's somewhere somewhat similar to that is this one. Okay, this is the only one that I have somewhat similar, Jen. You lose Jen? 3 people. Okay, this is somewhat similar. What would you guys answer here? We have the seller, right? The seller has given a counter offer by the buyer. So that means they're going back and forth already, given a counter offer by the buyer. If the seller receives a second offer, right, for a higher price, does this still mean that the seller can revoke the counter offer for the first buyer, wait for response of the first buyer, tell the first buyer to raise his original offer, or wait until she has exhausted all counter offers from the first buyer. Ruth, you're making the classical mistake. Guys, never, ever, 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 ever change your answers. Be wrong because you have to be wrong. Or just be right altogether. But never, ever, ever change your answers. That's the reason you go from 100% to no percent. Happens all the time. When I'm here watching everybody, well, I didn't say it was right, Ruth. I didn't say it was right. I'm just telling you, if you're going to fail, fail. That's what I'm trying to say. Because now you're sure that that was wrong. Does that make sense? If you answered something, right? Now you're sure that it was wrong versus, hey, let me try B, let me try C, let me try D, right? And you're not sure, right? Because you don't want to go to the state exam doubting yourselves, right? So now is the time to go with gut feeling and be wrong as many times as you have to be wrong in order to get the right answer, right? That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, changing answers is the #1 reason for failure. You don't want that. So, see, we got a bunch of answers. Let me ask you something, okay? Shanice says, yes, that happened to me. And yes, Shanice, it did. I remember. During the school exam, and then, anyway. It doesn't just happen to you, it happens to 90% of the students. Right? So, hey, Joel, are you on your cell phone? Okay, then why is your name your email? Yesterday you had an excuse, not today. All right. I'm not sure if we lost Jen or not, but still waiting on acknowledgement here. All right, so in this answer, guys, I just want to point out a few things. It says the seller has given a counter offer. You guys remember what counter offer means? It means rejected. If the offer was rejected, right? Then does the offer exist? No. So what can we do? If we have a better offer, what can we do? It was rejected. What can we do? The answer is, drum roll. We'll be right back after these commercials first to find out what the answer is. Isn't that what they do in the game shows? It sucks. But anyway, so the answer is, I can revoke the counter offer because I'm not obligated to move forward. I'm not obligated to move forward. Ruth says, dun 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 dun. Anyway, so I'm not obligated. A counter offer is a rejection. Okay, so I rejected the buyer's offer and they still did not accept the counter. So technically, we're not in the contract at all. If we're not in the contract, I can revoke, hey, buyer, you know what, I countered, but we're not moving forward with that anymore. That's it. So here, we have no obligation whatsoever because there was a counter offer. Counter offers means rejections. It's a new offer. Correct, Cheryl. It is a new offer. By the way, this is a tricky one. So if you guys had it wrong, it's okay. What you need to remember, counter offer is rejection. Being a rejection, there's no obligation to either party until it's accepted. So rejected. Gotta remember that. Okay? So if a second offer shows up for a higher price, can I jump at the second offer? Again, only in this scenario because of the counter offer. Only because of the counter offer. Okay? If it's an accepted offer, now we got to read a little bit more. We got to read a little bit more because if you're in an area where the cooling off period is 3 days, right? Then within 3 days, can I cancel my offer? Yeah, it's not ethical. Not the right thing to do, but I can. After we're under contract, like after the cooling off period, after the third business day, can we cancel the contract for a high on offer? No, now we're in the contingency period. Now you have to have a legal excuse to back out of it. Okay? So can somebody accept a second offer while we are in the agreement period back and forth, like disputed period back and forth? Can we accept it? And the answer is absolutely. I can revoke this one and move on to that one. An accepted offer is only binding after the cooling off period is over. In New Jersey, we call the attorney review period, and we call it 3 business days. So after 3 business days, it becomes binding. Till then, yeah, second offer, higher price, let's do this. Again, it's not ethical, but that would be the answer. So Jen, you say you're still there. Did you see my answer? Did you see this question? Was it something similar to this or no? You guys good with this? You understood? Any questions? There's only like 2 or 3 people that went for A. The majority of you went for B or D. Majority of them. I think there's only one that went for C. Yep. Joel, but then oh no, Lula said the same. Joel answered and then changed his answer. All right. Again, never change your answers. It's the difference from being at 70%, right, to being at 50% or 40%, 30%. Change answers. Denise said it happened to her. I was trying to yell at her during the exam and I couldn't yell at her to say, just submit the exam, please. You passed. Submit, submit. Ah, failed. Yep. Yeah. A lot of you do this. A lot of you. Okay. By the way, what I said to a student today, not my student, but I say this to all the students. One of the ways to pass, guys, see, I'm taking a chill Friday. That's what it is. One of the ways to pass, remove the outcome. Enjoy the process, remove the outcome. Don't think you have to pass. Don't put that stress upon yourselves. Think about doing the best you can, right? Think about doing the best you can as you're reading these questions, right? That's it. Don't put pressure. I have to pass. I'm a really bad test taker. No, and I'm gonna fail. And that's too much pressure. What's the worst that can happen? For the school, you can take the test again. Not a problem. For state exam, the worst that can happen, it's another $45. You guys understand? That's the worst thing that can happen. I'll never judge you for failing. Well, a few people maybe, but I'll never judge you for failing. Right? If you don't pass the exam, no problem. I'm here to help. I'll point it out where are the things that sorry. Hey Jen, make sure you don't get into an accident. Jen just says, I'll be back. I'm driving and I took a wrong turn. Anyway. Tina's asking, can we choose when we want to take the state test? Can you choose? Yeah, after you pass mine, you can do whatever you want. You choose. I recommend that you do it the very next day if you can. Because if you can pass mine, that means you can pass theirs. Simple. No ifs or buts about it. If you can pass mine, then most likely you can pass theirs. Can you take mine as many times as you want? No, just once. All you need is once. You don't need more than that. So, The agreement was that 2 school exams are included with each class. Unfortunately, both Pedro and I are very soft at heart. So we let you guys test as many times as you want until we get tired and say get out. Look, we can either make money off of you, like I could charge you ridiculous amount of money per every test you make, or I can help you pass without pressure. My ultimate goal, success. Pedro says that has to end. He wrote something, I don't understand what he wrote, but I translated easily. I already understand Pedro needs, right? The special language that he has. All right. You guys good? Ready to move forward? All right, so we're going to move forward, and then we'll take a quick break in a little bit. I addressed escrow, collecting rents, maintaining relations, tenant relations. I already told you guys that it's very important as a property manager. What a quick turn, huh? We went different. We went the wrong way, like Jen said. Took a wrong turn. So maintaining tenant relationships, this is key. Again, guys, it's about that customer service. Very important. For you to be successful is about customer service. Or in this case, for realtors, agent service. Legal issues. So property managers must be fully aware of the Americans with Disability Act, fully aware of the discrimination laws and the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So fair housing, discrimination, ADA discrimination for people with disability, and ECOA discrimination for people that have good credit, good income, but you look at them because of their race. These are all kind of tied in, right? And we already covered discrimination in a different chapter. Jen says she's back. All right, so you made the right turn now, Jen? Property maintenance falls into different categories. We have the physical maintenance of the property. And this is one of the property manager's primary functions. The costs of services provided must always be balanced with financial objectives and needs to satisfy tenants' needs. The manager will also be concerned with staffing and scheduling requirements in accordance to the maintenance objectives. Maintenance objectives. Like everything else in your life, we need to know what we want to do long term, right? There's people that want to buy a house, and I always ask, do you intend to live here for 30 years? Right? Nobody knows. Nobody really, like, some people say, yeah, I'm going to live here forever, right? But then 5 years later, they're out. But I always ask the question, because depending on what you're doing with the property or how long you're going to be here, maybe, if you're going to be here for 5 years, then maybe I'll tell you to buy a multifamily instead of a single family. As an example, if you're going to be here for 5 years, get a property that brings you income for 5 years. You only have to deal with tenants for 5 years, but at least it pays itself off and gives you increases in value, right? So you can sell for a higher amount, or you move somewhere else and you use the rentals to pay that somewhere else. So again, what are the main objectives, right? Usually it is to preserve the value of the asset over a long term, right? Now, although not every property is best served by vast expenditures on top-level maintenance, there's almost always to maintain the viability of property as a rental. So 3 general types of maintenances are required to keep the property in serviceable condition. There's a routine, preventative, and corrective maintenance, right? Routine maintenance, well, day-to-day stuff that must be done, like regular inspections, upkeep of mechanical systems, right? So the heating, the air conditioning, restrooms, lighting, landscaping, regular cleaning of common areas, minor repairs, supervision of purchasing, and so on. Preventative, right? So preventative, it goes beyond the routine, right? To deal with situations that can become serious problems if ignored. So for instance, It's not a routine thing, but seasonal or scheduled replacement of appliances and equipment, regular painting of exterior and interior areas, and planned replacement for a roof are a few examples of preventative. So we know that eventually we need to make these replacements. So schedule a time to do so based on the life expectancy of each item and put money aside for that, right? The next one is corrective. Well, something broke. We got to fix it. Simple. Another thing to remember is maintenance contracting. Can we do it ourselves? Right? Does it make sense to hire somebody to be in-house, or should we just contract for services? So depending on the complexity of the building, so again, building type and size, maybe, let's say it's a 100-unit apartment building, maybe you want to have a property manager. Maybe you want to have a property manager that's going to live in the area. If you have a two-family, right? If you have a two-family building, does it make sense to hire somebody full-time? No, it doesn't make sense. So again, this is all based on the complexity. The maintenance contracting is based on the complexity of the requirements and the building itself. Tenant improvements. This is usually done during commercial properties, or if you're Mr. Badur, where you replace carpets for your tenants. As it says here, you recarpet every year, you said, right? Ahmed, every year? That's nuts. Again, they must pay you very well. So that's what it is. You maintain, make improvements before a tenant moves in, or while the tenant's there. Renovations. Again, depending on functionality, you might have to make changes to the current arrangement of the structure itself in the apartments, or renovations because somebody moved out and you have now an opportunity to update certain items there, like plumbing, for instance. Okay. Environmental concerns, and yes, we are responsible as property managers, just like salespeople, responsible for being aware of environmental concerns. So these range from the air quality, waste disposal, tenant concerns, federal, state, and local environmental regulations. So for those of you that were in the morning class, you heard me talk about asbestos, radon, mold, lead, and so on. Right? These are dangerous things that we need to be aware as salespeople and as property managers. Okay? Diana, if you're talking to me, I can't hear you. All right. Legal concerns. So ADA, we already talked about. Americans with Disability Act. As you guys know, Americans with Disability Act applies for commercial only, not residential. So when we're talking about property managers of 5 units or more, property managers of commercial units like retail, industrial, manufacturing, whatever, then ADA applies. And the landlord is responsible for fixing these things if they're reasonable accommodations. If they're cheap, meaning the amount of money that you have to spend is not going to be the restructure of the whole building, right? So you are required to make these adjustments. Hold on. Tina says, my old landlord told me I was supposed to repaint when I was moving out 5 years later. I didn't. Okay. You're making a statement. I don't know what the question was. How damaged was it? Isn't he supposed to repaint since I was there for 5 years? What does your lease say? My leases say you have to restore the property to original condition before you leave. But if it's wear and tear versus change of color, if it's wear and tear, then no, it's not my responsibility, unless again the lease expressly states so. It always goes back to contract. Read what the contract says, what you agree to. in the provisions of the contract. Okay. Okay, you got to restore the property to original condition. How was the original condition when you got it? Was it painted? Okay, so did you restore it to the original condition? Did you paint it? No. So you breached the agreement. But I cannot charge you for wear and tear. So if there's smudges on the wall, that's wear and tear. If you painted the walls a different color, or if you damaged the walls, now you have to repair. So to answer this real quick, he did to the new tenant because you did the same thing the previous tenant did to him. So he painted for you before he moved in, right? Because the previous tenant did not. As an example. But again, let me ask you. Okay, the lease will say you have to restore the property to the original condition. What do you think that means? You found the walls painted when you move in, so nope, no. Any alterations, restore the property to original condition. Okay, so the question was also, did you change the colors of any wall? No. All right. So if you did not change the colors of any wall, then it depends on the extensive damage of that paint. If it was, again, just normal wear and tear, like people rubbing on the wall, right? So sometimes there's marks, right? You're not responsible for that, right? Just like the carpet. If the carpet is faded, well, that's normal because people walk on it, right? It's normal thing. So that's wear and tear. If the faucet is leaking a little bit, it's normal. It's wear and tear. Now, if you break something, right, or if you change the colors of the wall, that's not normal. It was not the condition that was given to you. So again, you need to read the lease. That's all. He cannot charge, by law, they cannot charge for wear and tear. The ceiling started peeling while you were there? Was it your fault? Were you swinging from the ceiling? Were you jumping up and down? What were you doing? Okay. If you're not swinging from the ceiling, then that's a normal wear and tear. Old paint. That's on him. That's not you. Got it? Now, if you tell me, start peeling because, you know what? I installed the swing. I don't know. Whatever people are into these days, right? Then the peeling part would... Sorry. Again, it's Friday. But then the peeling part would then really affect the lease, and you would have to fix it. Yes. All right. Going back to this. All right, risk management. Guys, yesterday we had a whole chapter on risk management. This should be easy. Risk management is when we're trying to avoid, reduce, transfer, or retention of risk, right? So in this case, in property management, when we're talking about avoidance, right, we can remove the source of the risk by closing off a dangerous area of the building. We know it's dangerous. We avoid people going there, period. Reduction. This is where we install, for instance, fire alarms, sprinklers, and security systems. In the property management, that's what reduction would be. Transference, it's always going to be, if you ever see transfer of risk, it's always going to be insurance. Transfer of risk is always going to be insurance. And retention is, I know this is going to happen, or most likely will happen. So let me put money aside, right? It's the self-insurance. Let me put money aside so I can fix these things. Like the peeling of the ceiling, right? Even rhymes, right? I have to have money aside for that. It doesn't go from a secure deposit. It goes from the money I set aside because eventually there's wear and tear. How long ago was that, Tina? 5 years ago? All right, you got 1 more year to go sue. Statute of limitations on contracts, because you are in New Jersey, is 6 years. You have 1 more year to go sue for double the deposit. He cannot keep the money because of wear and tear. Okay? But we'll talk about that exactly next week. Okay? So we're going to go over the New Jersey portion next week, the New Jersey portion of this, where we address the leases and the requirements. Okay? Security and safety. A court may hold a manager and owner responsible for the physical safety of the employees, tenants, and customers. That makes sense. And that's why we do, as we just said, the reduction, right, of risk by having sprinklers, fire doors, smoke alarms, and so on. We keep insurance. This is where we transfer risk. We shift the liability away from the owner to the insurance company. If something goes wrong, they will pay for the damage, like theft, vandalism, burglary, illness, accident, machinery damage. Coverage for risks incurred by the owner when the public enters the building, and so on. Okay? So we covered this yesterday under property management. Handling of trust funds, you guys already know. And we got the management agreement. All right? But guys, we're going to go on to a quick break. It is now 7:25. We're going to be back at 7:35. 7:35, we're going to be back before I get into this, all right? Zoomers, I'll be back with you guys. I'm not going to close. YouTubers, I'm going to close the session and open another one right after, okay? See you guys in 10 minutes.